Now, after 3 years at the helm, Andre de Ruyter has left his role at Eskom as CEO with immediate effect. Let's get more reaction now, and we are joined by the former acting group head executive for generation at Eskom, Rhulani Mathebula, who talks to us from Limpopo this morning. Mr. Mathebula, thank you very much for making time for us. Did it surprise you that Mr. de Ruyter is now going to leave with immediate effect? This was after being told in December when he resigned that he would do what is called a smooth handover up until the end of March.
Tolly, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Yes, indeed. Obviously, we had expected that he would stay until Eskom is able to find the new CEO will be taking over from him. So, unfortunately, the news when it came through yesterday, it was obviously a shock to all of us, because we were all of a view that he had agreed with the board that he will stay longer to be able to do what they normally call the handover to the new incumbent.
Mm. And you will know, Mr. Mathebula, I don't think there's perhaps few people in the country who may not be aware that Mr. de Ruyter recently gave an interview to one of the broadcasters, and in that interview, really what he did was to just be frank about what he has observed at Eskom. Is there any doubt in your mind that this abrupt departure was actually forced on him?
Look, what I know is obviously that it was the decision by the board in the special meeting that they had yesterday that they need to release him, since anyway they were the one that asked him to stay longer. So I would not be able to tell whether it was forced on him or not. But for me, totally, I believe that obviously his mind was no longer with Eskom in any way, since he decided, he put his resignation through. So for me, even the desire to have him stay longer, I do not think that it was helping the organization in any way, because I do not know if I was to resign today and say I will stay for another week or two, whether in that 2 weeks am I still serving the interest of the business, or I'm worried about or thinking about what am I going to be doing next.
For some time, you had the opportunity to work with Andre. Just this morning, we were interviewing on this channel the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy in Parliament, Mr. Sahlulele Luzipo. And he says it was always clear, at least to him, or perhaps including the Portfolio Committee that he leads, that Andre de Ruyter harbored political ambitions. Is that something that you observed over the years that you worked with him?
Look, I cannot really tell that it was mainly political ambitions. My understanding when I was working with Andre was that he is driving what is expected by policymakers, which is the just energy transition. And obviously it is not something that was welcome by everyone in the country, because it had a huge impact on people that dependent on power stations that are currently running for their livelihood. So that was not the issue of just energy transition is not well received within our communities, as well as within Eskom generation employees themselves. And that obviously created a bit of tension between the communities, the local municipalities, the employees, and Andre, because he was obviously the front runner in this just energy transition.
Why do you think that resistance? Is it people worried that they would lose their jobs because coal would be abandoned in favor of renewable energy?
Totally, it is a fact that a power station, a coal-fired power station, employs and feeds much more families than what a solar or wind farm can actually do. And this You're talking about direct and indirect impact. You're talking about the mine that will no longer be supplying. You're talking about the small towns that were developed around the power stations, where there were contractors that were servicing the power stations, who were residing in the area, people who had businesses that were servicing the power stations in the areas. Services which will no longer be there once you have a power station shut down, like in the case of Komati at the moment.
Rhulani, let's talk about who is left to lead Eskom. If you put aside the board for a moment, because their job is to oversee the work of the executive. Andre is gone. Jan Obelhoza is leaving in April. The only other person I can think of right now who is there in an acting capacity is the person that took over after you left. He's the acting head of generation, Thomas Conradi. Is there a solid leadership right now at Eskom, do you think, or is there someone who actually can lead Eskom in the interim that you may be aware of?
Look, I think, Toli, what is key is that the board, and I believe that the decision that they made yesterday, obviously, to release Andre a month before the time that they have agreed with him, obviously put a lot of pressure on them as well to find the incumbent. The position has already been advertised, which I believe that they're probably in the process now of shortlisting, and they'll be doing interviews, whatever the case might be. And fortunately, they might get an incumbent to come and take over. However, during the 3 years that Andre was there, the one person that always was taking the reins as the acting CEO in the absence of Andre is the CFO, Khaled Hassim. He has always been playing the role of the acting CEO every time when Andre is not there for other businesses overseas. So I believe that maybe in the interim, that might be the person that might have to look after the business. And while the board will have to really cut short the process and make sure that the incumbent that must take over really comes in ASAP.
Might it surprise you if it is not the CFO that comes up as the acting CEO and instead you have the board chair announced as an acting CEO up until the appointment of the CEO?
No, I would not. I was in Eskom when the current board chair assumed both roles as the chair and as well as the CEO. So I would not be surprised. It's something he did before, and if he wishes to do it again, I think he knows what he would be doing because he has been on the role before. So I would not be surprised.
Just a final question to you, and it's something that was said by Andre in that interview, and I know you're going to be reluctant to comment here, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. He says, and I quote, "There's been a signal lack of cooperation from the Department of Minerals and Energy." This is Andre de Ruyter essentially coming out very clearly about the non-cooperation of the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy. That's the department led by Mr. Mantashe, with Eskom on a number of issues, but more importantly, I guess it's got to do with new capacity that has been lacking at Eskom. Is that something that you also would agree with, that there was simply non-cooperation from the Department of Mineral Resources in dealing with Eskom?
Look, the statement that Andre mentioned there, for me, who has been working with him, it was not the first time I hear him mentioning the same. He has mentioned that in various of our meetings that we were having within the business, that there is the pace at which DMRE was doing certain things was much slower than what he would have anticipated. Whether that was deliberate or was that based on the process that need to be followed, I cannot allude to that. But the comment itself, I was not hearing it for the first time. I was not hearing him for the first time raising that concern the process seems to be delayed when it gets to DMRE.
And I'm grateful for that honesty from your side. And perhaps as a parting shot then, how would you rate, or what would your views be on the actual department that now is playing the role of shareholder over Eskom, DPE, the one that's led by Minister Godan? Because Andre de Ruyter says that department played an interventionist role at Eskom. Would you say that that hand perhaps sometimes was played just within the perimeters of where the department should, I suppose, exercise oversight over Eskom? Or do you think it sometimes went too far to a point of micromanaging, as some people have suggested?
Tolly, to be honest, I think we will all understand where the country finds itself. And the Minister of DPE, as the representative of the shareholder, which is the government, obviously becomes the first one to account to the government when the state-owned company is not performing, which is where Eskom finds itself. So, yes, I would say that it is a disparate situation. And obviously, sometimes maybe the boundaries might not be clearly observed because of the desperation to try and take the country out of this disparate situation of load shedding. So I have personally experienced the presence of the minister and his team in trying to establish what is the problem, how can we assist, and all that. And obviously, in many a time, I personally had to interact myself with the minister to try and put him at ease and understand what the issues are and what progress are we making in the recovery program.
Rhulani Mathebula, let me thank you sincerely for your time. He is the former acting group head of Generation, someone who was at Eskom very recently. And we're really grateful for his time. All right.